it goes either way. Honesty breeds honesty, and cheating and lying and so on breeds the same. Like attracts like. So the further we get away from spiritual foundations of life, then the more we get what is the most undesirable thing. And the biggest calamity of life is losing your spiritual values, losing your spiritual morals, your spiritual compass, your sense of right and wrong. That's the calamity. The earthquakes and the floods and whatever. They're calamities, yes, and they're terrible and we suffer. But when as an individual I lose all that internal honesty and truthfulness and mercy and cleanliness and everything, then what have I got left? And basically nothing.
What is the meaning of real progress? This is Ruben from the Breaking Trail podcast, where you learn to navigate life's journey through ancient wisdom. And yeah, today's talk will be about progress and how we as a society advance, and as an individual, how I can know whether I'm making advancement and moving forward, and how do I do that. So happy to have you here. Let's just dive right onto it. Because I was gonna just mention my shirt as well. I don't know if you saw it. I bought this shirt in Sweden. It says,
I can't even see it. What does it say?
It says there.
The mountains are calling.
Exactly. Yeah. This yearning for something more, for something else, for.
John Muir. John Muir. He was a great naturalist. He's the one who was responsible for Yosemite Park and basically the national park system in America.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
He was back at the time of President Roosevelt.
Mm.
But anyway, he spent his whole time in nature, and he said the mountains make a very good mistress, but a very bad wife.
Okay. What did he mean? Or what was his...
Well, I don't know exactly what he meant, but I mean, they tantalize you, they lure you in, they're good for, pleasures and so on, but they're not a good wife,
Yeah.
You can't depend on them to be the same and trustworthy. I mean, that's my take on it. I don't know what he meant.
Yeah. It's kind of like that movie. What was it, the movie where the guy lives in that bus in the northern parts of Canada and finds out that happiness
into the wild.
Exactly.
Fantastic movie. Yeah.
And tragic, because we've spoken about that before. Like I've also felt that I'm looking for that home, but even in nature, it doesn't really satisfy me fully.
And it can't. That's why it's like a good mistress, but it's not a good wife. I mean, it can't really satisfy you. And yeah. So just as a side note, that bus where he went and lived and died.
Yeah.
They just recently removed that. They took it out of there. It's been there until just now.
Oh.
And they flew it out of there with a giant helicopter. And the reason was because that was a destination for so many people after reading the book and seeing the movie. And over years, so many people have gotten in big trouble in that river that he couldn't get across. They've had to rescue so many people. People have died in there.
Really?
Et cetera. So it just became a nuisance, and so they finally removed it.
Wow.
Yeah.
People want to walk in the footsteps of...
Yeah, let's go see that. It's like a landmark thing, and, it's wild. It's nature back there, and people have actually, either rescue or big trouble or death.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how they got that bus there in the first place.
That's a good question. That I don't know. That I can't answer.
But
Yeah.
but my idea of speaking today was on progress, and basically the question of, on a personal level as well, like, am I moving forward? And if you end up in that situation, that's an obvious question. You end up there, it doesn't satisfy you. So you were striving and longing for and planning for this big mountain trip. You were getting all the gear together and you were longing for it. Like my brother just said, he has that situation. Like, he's been planning for and working for like a month consecutive long hours to have this month free to spend in the mountains. And the day before he was gonna go, he called me and said, like, I don't really have the motivation to go anymore. Like, it doesn't feel like it's gonna do. I mean, this is my interpretation, but I'm sensing that he feels like it's not gonna do what what he hopes for it to do. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's everything in the material world. Whether you carry it to the end, like the guy in the movie, and actually achieved what he was longing to achieve. But in the end, if you remember, he wrote on the wall just before he died, happiness has to be shared.
Yeah.
You can't be happy alone. And so he experienced it the hard way, but at the same time, it's just the reality of truth. And when we talk about success, we have to define what is success. That's really the issue here. What is success? And so for different people, it's different material achievements. For the guy in the movie, it was going to be completely alone in the far hinterland of Alaska, which he achieved. But that didn't work. In fact, what he was trying to do is go out of there when it came to the flooded river and couldn't get out. And he was now trapped in his own utopia.
Exactly.
So he'd already concluded, this is not working, I want to leave. But then he couldn't leave, and he felt completely a prisoner, of nature. So the point is, whatever your goal is, and for almost everybody, it's some material achievement. You see, it's still a material goal and a material achievement. And it can never satisfy the soul. We've talked so much about the fact that we're spirit souls. We're not our material bodies. I mean, we don't do any podcast without bringing this up in one way or another.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to that, and so success in the minds of almost everybody is a material achievement. We just finished, the Olympics just finished, And so for all those athletes, 11,000 athletes, 200 countries, that was basically the goal for many of their life's work.
Yeah.
Was just to get to go to the Olympics.
Exactly.
See? Yeah. And then those who won, gold or silver or bronze or whatever they won, maybe it was just a personal best. They achieved that goal.
Yeah.
And so, you could say, well, they were successful. All the gold medal winners or silver or bronze winners, they were successful, but, now they've achieved that success. And are they going to be happy for the rest of their life because of it? And the answer is no, they're not, And so there's statistics that show that after material success on any level, there's oftentimes a great depression.
Yeah.
You've put everything on the line, you achieved it, and now what?
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had maybe some experience in nature, like, okay, I did it, but now it's done. I got to do something else.
Exactly.
And so every wonderful experience we've had in material life prior to this moment is over. It's finished. And how long can I ride that wave of euphoria or that feeling of happiness,
Yeah.
before it just dissipates?
sort of watching the pictures of the trip and enjoying and talking about it and remembering. And
yeah, I mean, that's why these guys go on lecture tours after they do something big, they summit Everest. Now they want to capitalize on it and remain, in the spotlight and relive the moment. And so they've got their PowerPoint presentations and people say, wow, that's so great. You're such an inspiration for us. And all that just kind of keeps it flowing, but that runs out too. I mean, everything that we do materially has a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
And in between, whether it's the greatest thing that ever happened in our life or the greatest disappointment happened in our life, it's still the same story. It has a beginning and it has an end.
Yeah.
And
we're kind of like, another thought that came to my mind is that we're sort of locked into a pattern by the things we do, because the more effort we put into it, the harder it is to turn another direction and redirect our life, because we've spent so much money and so much effort in these studies, or this learning this skill for going in the mountains, or so you have to you're sort of locked into, you're having to utilize that for the future, else you have to realize that maybe you've wasted your life or to put it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the reality that we don't want to face.
Tough one.
And also, in this idea of putting all your time and effort and energy and basically life into whatever the goal is, you start identifying with that as being you.
Exactly.
This is me. This is who I am. When that, again, is incorrect. It's not true. And you can't live a lie but so long and still believe that lie. Somehow something breaks that bubble.
Yeah.
And then, you have to, come off of that and come back to, wow, well, now what?
Yeah.
And, but along the way, mankind, we talked about the purpose of human life last week.
Yeah.
Mankind, in its endeavor to, achieve all these goals of material enjoyment, have created a big situation on planet Earth that's now basically devouring itself. It's coming back. It's like the house of cards is falling down. But rather than just admit that and take another direction according to a higher goal, a higher achievement, we just keep adding more cards to the falling down house, hoping that, okay, that part fell, but we're going to prop it up with all this. And it's just self-defeating. It's guaranteed failure. So there's no real progress. That's the reality, The definition of progress is wrong. The concept of progress is incorrect. Because we're basing it on, I'm the body. I'm not really who I am, spirit, soul. See? And another definition of progress, which I think most people would agree with, okay, I agree money and fame and all this is not really going to make you happy. But real progress or achievement in life is when you're actually happy. Happiness is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Happiness is the goal. But the soul can never be happy from a material source. So after all this madness of progress and achievement and, moving forward and advanced civilizations, and then we have to step back and ask the very simple question, okay, is the world as a whole, are the people on planet Earth, are we as individuals more happy because of it? Are we? I mean, be honest. Don't beat around the bush. Just look at yourself or look at those around you who you know, or just look at the symptoms of society. And are we happier now or not? And anybody with any kind of honesty would have to say, no, we're obviously not more happy. So that means we didn't achieve success. That means all this endeavor of, the striving for success was actually the opposite. It took us away from the goal of happiness.
Yeah.
Because that's a laudable goal. Happiness is the goal.
Yeah. Exactly. But
my spiritual master, Siddhartha Rupananda, he wrote a book one time and he said, pleasure is the goal. And the whole book was, very informative. And that's really, the goal of life. Go ahead, you had something to say.
Yeah. I as usual, I have a lot of quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam, actually, Chaitanya Charitamrita today on progress, and there is something that may, this is just so. And here's, for example, again, what you're saying, that this is a definition of what advancement and progress means. This is from the purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 52. Human society means that society which is making progress towards spiritual realization. The most advanced human society was known as Arya. Arya refers to those who are advancing. So the question is, which society is advancing? Advancement does not mean creating material necessities unnecessarily, and thus wasting human energy and in aggravation over so-called material comforts. Real advancement is advancement towards spiritual realization, and the community which acted towards this end was known as the Aryan civilization.
Yes. I mean, that's where we get our information from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from, our spiritual masters. This is absolute information. This is not just passionate, sensual, fueled, lust-fueled pursuits. This is actual information. And if you read that every day, it'll ring more and more true. It's not about creating unnecessary material things.
Yeah. So-called material comforts.
Yeah. And I often refer, because from Srimad Bhagavatam, we gain this knowledge about our ancient civilizations, the Aryan civilizations, the Vedic civilizations, and what they were like. And it actually describes what they were like as far as basically everyday activities of the citizens, and what was their experience of being a member of that Aryan civilization. And it was happiness. It was satisfaction. It was actual spiritual advancement. The whole society was making spiritual advancement, you see. But the material achievements were also unprecedented. I mean, you look about how much opulence that was on the planet at that time, and how the citizens were so comfortable, physically, not just, they were ascetics sitting in caves, and they were all oming and going, oh, yes, I'm happy now. They were so opulent, their clothes, their jewelry, their whole, residential quarters. They're not working 9 to 5 in a factory, to make enough money to pay the rent. You don't read about any of those struggles of everyday life now that the citizens were toiling with just to exist. Foodstuffs were so abundant that they had just surpluses of everything, and so the Vedic system was, the Brahmins, who were the priestly class, the intellectual, learned, spiritually evolved class of society, were supported by society, and so much was given to them out of charity, because there was so much abundance to give, and to give to each other, and to not hoard, and not to feel greedy, and put fences around your yard and big dogs to say, don't step in here. All that stuff didn't exist, because it was a spiritually advanced society, which is accompanied by material success. Automatically so. Automatically.
Wow.
And so they were happy materially, and they were happy spiritually. So on all levels, there was happiness.
Well, which is an interesting point, because when you think about making progress, you always think that it's one or the other. Like, I mean, obviously our podcast is focused on the spiritual direction. So you may think, okay, these guys just promote, no material benefit, asceticism, like you said, sit in a cave and do some oming and, starving and be happy inside.
Yeah, that's what people think. And that's why they don't want to, even entertain spiritual life, because I'll lose my material prosperity, or my material comforts, or my material success.
Right. But
and I don't want to jeopardize that.
But so is it possible to hold on to these two at the same time, if you still if you still want and need and have the have the need for such material success? Like, can you still maintain those two at the same time, or do you have to? Yeah.
Yes, you can. Because if you have the right understanding, the right vision, the right consciousness, everything is God's anyway. I mean, everything is God's property. He owns everything. But he allots certain individuals certain portions of his property according to their karma and, their connection with him and so on. They can utilize this amount. But he says it should be utilized in my service. You should do it as an offering unto me. Whether it's your money, whether it's your intellect, whether it's your skills in one way or another way. Whatever material possessions or rewards or abilities or talents you have, what does the Lord say? It should be done as an offering unto me. Everything that you do, everything that you eat, everything that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Okay, so according to your karma, this lifetime, maybe you've got a lot of material success. Or it's in the cards for you to get a lot of material success. Maybe you don't have it now, but maybe, karmically, wise, you will. But what should you do with it? You should use it as an offering to God. See, doesn't mean you give everything away and only keep nothing. You take what you need and you give away. So the kings and the aristocracy in these Vedic civilizations were wealthy beyond measure. See? But they were doing everything they were doing as service to God. That was their position. That was their allotment. And they took that and used it in God's service. They took care of the citizens as if they were their own children.
Yeah.
And that means all citizens, not just those in human bodies. They considered the animals. They considered the plants. They considered all life as their children. And therefore, they took care of all the citizens of the country. And so it's not like you're going to find, complete poverty among a spiritually advanced society. That doesn't prove to be correct as far as history goes. And is God not the owner of everything? Is not he the provider of the wealth that anyone may possess or whatever? So when those who are, his children are, using their life as it should be used, would not he give them in abundance?
Because
Yes.
so
That's why is there such scarcity now? Because we're living a contra life. We're living, as competitors. And so, the flow is being withheld.
yeah, it's I have I have to read this, and this is also teaching us maybe something about how to see the difficulties that we're facing in the world today. This is again from Srimad Bhagavatam, where Bhaktivedanta says, this material world is certified by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. They have no information of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and without trace of calamity. The duty of the sane person is therefore not to be disturbed by the worldly calamities, which are sure to happen in all circumstances, but suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritual realization, because that is the mission of human life. The spirit soul is transcendental to all material calamities. Therefore, the so-called calamities are called false. A man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for his calamity. Actually, there is no tiger and there is no suffering, but it is simply a case of dreams. In the same way, all calamities of life are said to be dreams. Just
right there to the point. Yeah, so, the focus is on the eternal and not the temporary. In spiritual life, our spiritual master, Siddha Rupananda Paramahamsa, has made that point so clear. Focus on the eternal and not the temporary. See? But we spend all of our life focusing on the temporary and completely no focus on the eternal. So it's backwards. Calamities will come. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, verse 14, the Lord says, happiness and distress will come and go like the coming of the winter and summer seasons. There's going to be happiness, there's going to be distress. And you're not going to avoid that. This is the material world. This is how it's designed.
Yeah.
Like the winter and summer seasons, they come and they go. It arises from sense perception, O Skiyana Bharata. And one must learn to tolerate them. See? So we have to know it's coming and it's going. Today is happy, tomorrow it's sadness. Today's sunny, tomorrow it's raining. But we continue on. See?
Yeah.
And deal with it as it needs to be dealt with.
Because if we build our whole life on trying to adjust, so that there are no calamities socially or, in our personal life, that everything is materially perfect, like it's just going to be a futile attempt. Like we're never going to,
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible. What was that first sentence you read? The material world is full of dangers, something like that?
Yeah, certified by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities.
Yeah. And the Lord also says in Bhagavad Gita, from the highest planet to the lowest planet, all are places of misery, of repeated birth and death. All. Even the higher heavenly planets, which are so opulent that, in our experience, we couldn't even imagine how wonderful it is. But it's still a place of misery. And so, but as Bhaktivedanta points out in the purport, there is a place free of misery, free of danger, free of calamities, where there's no worry about anything. It's full of bliss and knowledge, and it's eternal. And that's the goal. That's our real home. That's where we should try to return to. See?
Yeah.
This lockdown that is, pandemic lockdown, worldwide, has created so much stress in so many people's lives because they can't go home. See, they live in another country, and their parents and relatives live in their original country.
Yeah.
But because of all these restrictions, they can't go home. And they're suffering greatly because they can't go home, you see. And so we're all suffering greatly because we're not home. And we can't go home until we actually become qualified. You see.
Wow.
And then all the problem is solved. But nobody's looking at that. Nobody's even considering that. It's all right here, right now, this lifetime. Do the best you can, perfect it, whatever. You see, modern science has got the answer to all problems. We'll just create more pills. But come on, the calamities like this pandemic are coming faster than the ability to counteract it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's just lined up out there. It's just like hurricanes, that are just lined up out there, coming one after the other. And so you prepare for this hurricane and board all the windows and put up the sandbag seawalls and it comes, and you think, wow, we made it through that. But here's another one, and then this one's worse than the next one. The third one is worse. And, it never ends.
But I mean, it just, in my mind, it just seems like it doesn't make any sense. Like, why is it that we can't, it's so hard for us to let go of this world as being our home, and me making progress materially often in this world, that's, my goal. But I guess that's related to like the progress, if I understand it right, is maybe not, rearranging everything, but it's the consciousness that has to change.
It is about rearranging everything. It's about rearranging our consciousness, our vision, our whole lifestyle, our focus, our perception. That's the rearrangement. And that's the one that people aren't interested in. Because it's ignorance. We're not taught this, Nobody's teaching this really on a big scale.
No.
There are few this podcast. But nobody's really teaching this. Parents don't teach it to their children in general. I'm speaking in general now. Parents don't teach it to the children. Educators don't teach it to the students. You see, institutions don't teach it. The governments don't teach it. All the leadership on the earth don't really teach it, see? And so therefore, how are you going to know? Where are you going to get this information from? See, how are you going to adjust? How are you going to rearrange everything if you don't even know what the goal is?
Yeah.
It's a great lack of education in this department. And, it's not even allowed. It's not allowed. See, it's against the rules. There's laws that prevent you from going and teaching this in schools. Really, you can't do it. In America, back in the early 70s, the whole law and school system and everything was different. That wasn't that long ago, 50 years ago. And I could personally go into a classroom in a public school and teach these truths openly, not holding back, not, weaseling around and beating around the bush. I could just speak straight, and I would be invited by teachers to do so. And when I finished, the students and the teachers would thank me, etc. I can't do it. For years, that hasn't been allowed. See, that's no longer allowed. You can't do this in public schools, which are institutions of learning. You see. So, in other words, not only, is it not popular, but it's a law against it. So where are people going to learn these things? Where's the association that's going to promote this? You see. And all the heroes of the world, the movie stars, the rock stars, the athletes and so on, they're not the idols of spiritual journeys. They're they are the leaders, the kings of materialistic life.
Yeah.
And everybody wants a hero. Everybody's looking up to someone.
Exactly.
Now the internet is, full of, what they call them, internet influencers or social media influencers.
Yeah.
People who, they influence people because of their lifestyle or what they're doing, but they're not promoting these truths.
No.
And so they're influenced. I mean, there's even animals that are internet influencers. There's cats and dogs who are internet influencers. And they have their own little, shows and followers and thousands of fans and very popular, So... it's reality. But go ahead. You probably got some other quote. I like it. There's good. Keep going.
I have many. I don't think we'll be able to cover them all. No, but there's one quote that says very directly, this is again Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami. Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the material cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn the science, both directly and indirectly. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination, making progress, and the hindrances to such progress. That's...
Yeah. Well, there's the essence right there. The spiritual master is the teacher. Everybody's had many teachers in their life. Your parents are the first teachers, then the school teachers, and then whatever else, But when it comes to having a spiritual teacher, it's almost like taboo.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And, in some cases, the reputation of a spiritual teacher has been so marred by fake gurus and, cult leaders that have actually proven they're not trustworthy, they're dishonest. And those who did follow them had a very bad result.
Yeah, and we have...
from misunderstood everything to death. And so the whole concept of a spiritual master has been given a bad reputation by these charlatans.
Exactly. That's what's in the news. That's, the child abusing and all the horrible things that so-called spiritual people are doing. And I mean, how can you... I have no words, but yeah.
Yeah, so when somebody hears the statement that you just read, one should approach a spiritual master, they go, oh no, that's another cult thing. That's just another sect that's, dangerous. And, I'm not going to do that. And so, I mean, it's understandable why people are hesitant. And the people who really go beyond this are the people who are driven from within, and they understand beyond, the charlatan pseudo-spiritual masters. There are real ones. They're real spiritual masters, real teachers, But they kind of intuitively know that. They're given that understanding by God himself because they're serious in their desire to make progress, real progress. And so, but that's a minority. That's very, very small. Whereas in the Vedic culture, this was normal, absolutely normal.
Like everybody had a spiritual teacher like that. That was right.
Yeah, everybody. And children. The boys at the age of 5 years old, often went to the the Gurukula, it's called, the school of the guru, and it wasn't just one guru. It was like gurus, qualified teachers of spiritual truth, and they understood their position was to teach the young children. And so they had their institutions of learning, material and spiritual. They taught them material knowledge, and they taught them simultaneously spiritual knowledge. You see, and so they grew up. The whole society was populated by people growing up with this advanced learning and understanding and vision of life and real progress and happiness.
Exactly.
You see, so the children today became the leaders tomorrow.
Mm.
And they married and they had their children, and now they're qualified parents, to lead their offspring. And it just was self-perpetuating. You see, well, now we've got the opposite going on. It's still self-perpetuating, but in the other direction.
In a negative way.
Yeah. And so, it's not a mystery why things are like they are, but as individuals, we have to always come back to this. As individuals, we have to take responsibility for our own life. I mean, I can point fingers at this and that and the other and say, okay, this is wrong and that is wrong and these are wrong, and but really, I as an individual have to take responsibility for my own life. You see, I can't always be blaming someone else. And so it's my responsibility as a human to use it for spiritual progress. We're talking about progress here, for spiritual progress. And to the degree I do that, I will make real progress.
But how? So let's say I'm on board. I'm on the page. How do I know whether or not I'm progressing spiritually? What is it?
Because you're finding more and more real happiness and enthusiasm in pursuing a spiritual life, and your desire to pursue and achieve and so on in material life as a source of happiness diminishes. So your attraction for the material world diminishes, and your attraction for the spiritual world or spiritual life, spiritual growth, increases. And you start seeing the values. Well, this doesn't have the same value as this. This doesn't have the same attraction as this. This doesn't have the same sweetness and taste as this. And the promise of rewards from this is, so shallow compared to the promise of the rewards from this, etc. In other words, where is your interest? What are you trying to do with your life? And that shows progress or not. So I can be playing some kind of pseudo-spiritual game, but still, maintaining and increasing my material attraction. Well, I know I'm not doing very well. And the spiritual activities and pursuits is a real burden. I don't want to do it, but I feel I have to do it. Or somebody's telling me I have to do it. And so that's a sign that you're not really making spiritual progress.
Well, so unless you're honest, you're not going to see that, because you're going to, tell yourself that you're whatever. Well,
if you're not honest, nothing's going to come out good.
Yeah.
And honesty with ourselves is so important. And honesty with other people is so important. And that's, again, remember we talked about the 4 pillars of religion, and one was truthfulness. Well, when truthfulness is not there, then that pillar of religion is gone. And therefore, you've lost that valuable support of life. So we have to be honest, but honesty is like, again, a thing of the past. I mean, I keep referring to back when I was a kid, which wasn't that long ago. Things were so different. Honesty was a principle that people basically lived by where I grew up. I mean, I'm talking about my personal experience. You know, very, very big, important deals, business deals, were done by the shake of a hand. You know, maybe big money transactions, whatever, was the signing was a shake of the hand, not lawyers and you know, stamps and proofs and so on like that. You know, contracts and so on. They didn't exist. You know, it was just, okay, you say this, I say that, we shake on it, that's the agreement. And that was a lifelong bond. I mean, that was like written in stone.
Can you
believe it?
Can you even imagine having something like that?
Lawyers were not very popular, and they weren't very many of them because you didn't need them. Yeah. You know, they weren't a crucial part of surviving in society. You know, so, you know, you tell a builder, okay, I mean, I know my father borrowed money, shake of a hand. People did things in transaction with him, shake of a hand. You know, he built a home. He just tells the builder, they make an agreement, okay, I'll build this house, da-da-da-da-da, and that's all. No contracts, no paperwork, no nothing. The paperwork was like, it wasn't even there. It was word of mouth. You stood on your word, you know, and that was such a wonderful society.
Exactly.
You know, it was so comfortable, you know, but we lost it, you know, we lost it because that was a spiritually based culture. You know, the Bible said this, you must be honest, do not lie, do not cheat, do not steal. And so, okay, the Bible says it, Jesus is my Lord. He's, you know, all sins are known. I don't want to be a sinner. I want to, you know, be pleasing to Jesus. So therefore, that was the basis of action. That was the culture that was established.
And that whole culture makes true progress so much more easy. Like acting in that environment makes it possible. You know.
Yeah, and you're not always looking over your shoulder to see who's cheating you. And you're not always cheating others just to stay even.
Exactly, and compete, and exactly.
Okay, you cheat me, well, I'm going to cheat you too. You know, I mean, it goes either way. Honesty breeds honesty, and cheating and lying and so on breeds the same. You know, like attracts like. So the further we get away from spiritual foundations of life, then the more we get what is the most undesirable thing. You know. And the biggest calamity of life is losing your spiritual values, losing your spiritual morals, your spiritual compass, your sense of right and wrong. That's the calamity, you know. The earthquakes and the floods and whatever. They're calamities, yes, and they're terrible, and we suffer. But when there's an individual, I lose all that internal honesty and truthfulness and mercy and cleanliness and everything, then what have I got left? And basically nothing. There's no human life left. It's just regress to animal life, like we talked last week, with human facilities. To be the best cheat, the best criminal, the best, you know, exploiter and whatever.
I had a quote.
One more, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quote on this one as well, but I don't know if I'm finding it right now. But anyway, it's just, it was something that you said before because Bhaktivinoda said that our false appetite for enjoyment and lordship of the material world is due to prominence of passion and ignorance. By bhakti yoga, these two qualities are diminished, and one becomes situated in the mode of goodness. Gradually surpassing the mode of goodness, one is situated in pure goodness, which is not contaminated by material qualities. It's just prominence.
Yeah, so this
Genes.
society I was referring to when I was young was a mode of goodness society.
Exactly. I just wanted to, make that point.
It was a mode of goodness society, you see. And the people were good people. I mean, they were. You helped your neighbor, you had compassion if people needed help. You helped them, and everybody benefited. There was no losers. Nobody lost. And those who were in the modes of passion and ignorance, I mean, to a degree, everybody was, you see, but it wasn't pure. But the general prevailing atmosphere of goodness made such a difference, you see. And those who were in those lower influences of material nature, they were in the minority, and those in the mode of goodness wanted to help them in the way they could. You see, help them rise above that. You see, I can remember my father was an amazing man in many ways, just because of this understanding. And he used to look at a person who was, maybe somebody did something, they committed a crime, or, they were an alcoholic or whatever. And he said, well, that guy's done pretty good considering the chance he had. He really had a hard time finding fault in somebody.
Wow.
That guy did pretty good considering the chance he had.
Wow.
So, it was a different vision. And it was just because of the culture, because of the reason, because of the spiritual values, because of the teachings. Because he wasn't the only one. It's not like he was the only guy. It was like that was how it was. See? That's what we're missing. That's what we're missing more and more and more of.
So what's the basis in creating that atmosphere then? Like why is it so hard for us, and what's the basis in making that possible, and in that way making progress possible? Like what's
Well, it's Kali Yuga and things are progressing, as Kali Yuga progresses more and more to the modes of passion and ignorance.
Yeah.
And the leadership, leaders are leaders. And the leadership is not promoting this. They're not setting an example. The heroes, like I said, they're not setting an example to follow. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? As the great man does, the common man follows. I mean, that's the statement directly from the Lord. So the great men are those who are, quote, the heroes of society. And they're not showing this in their life. They're not telling anybody this. They're not passing laws to support this. They're not encouraging, this in any way.
Oh.
So as the great man do, the common man follows. The great man goes down, the common man goes down too.
Yeah.
So, but again, as individuals, we have to do what we can, take responsibility for our life and help those who want to be helped. And if people want to be helped, they will be helped. The Lord's in everybody's heart. He knows what each individual wants. And if they want to rise above it, they can. What does our spiritual master say? As the lotus flower rises above, the impurities of the water, you see, lotuses often grow in, impure water places. But the lotus rises up. It's the most beautiful flower, the most fragrant. Scriptures filled with, references to the lotus, So it rises above all the contamination, you see, and blooms and radiates and, gives off the sweetness of everything, the pollen that floats through the air like, golden saffron and whatever. So, as in the same way, through meditation, one can rise above the impurities of the world. See, the meditations we teach, the mantras, and then you add in, the educational factor of the truths that like you've been reading and so on. And you can rise above the impurities. And we have to be willing to do that. But if you stay in the mud, you stay muddy. Pigs like mud, swans like, lotus flower.
So, and in the end, just another, final thought maybe that I had is that, like, everything will be taken from us at the moment of death anyway. Like, so what's the use in gathering and collecting and, like our spiritual master said, like increasing the name and fame of our body, like.
Yeah. It will all be taken away. I just read some, I can't remember what it was, so I can't even comment on it. But it was somebody that, wasn't a spiritual teacher, but somebody, just an average person that had some position of authority, said exactly that. It's all going to be taken away at the time of death. So that's reality that everybody knows and nobody admits. Get as much as you can now, and somehow I'll hang on to it till the end. And when the end comes, it's all over anyway, right? I mean, that's another philosophy we talked about before. Yeah. So don't worry.
No. And Bhaktivedanta Swami says in Chaitanya Charitamrita in a purport, he says, systematic training of the mind and intelligence is therefore needed. And he says, so that at the time at the time of death, one may consciously desire a suitable body, either on this planet or another material planet or even a transcendental planet. So one can actually, choose where do you want to go at the time of death. Where do you?
Yeah. But that choice you're making right now through your lifestyle, you're already now making that choice. Early on, maybe you're not going to leave the body for 50 more years. But you're already making that choice by developing your consciousness, your attractions, your attachments, your desires. You're already making that choice. Unconsciously so, but we are. But in the Bhakti Yoga system, we're consciously preparing for that time, consciously.
Exactly.
Systematic training of the mind. Developing habits. Remember, we had that podcast on habits. Developing those habits. Now, spiritual habits, spiritual focus. And if it's 50 more years before I come to that moment of departure, that's 50 more years of developing the right habits, which become routines, which become our life. So, we wanted to keep it short today.
So we'll end with a chant.
We will. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're going to chant the same mantra, Gauranga Hari Bol, in the same tune, so it can become a habit. But the one thing about transcendental sound is you never get tired of it. Like a material sound, very quickly you're tired of it. With transcendental sound, you do not get tired. Haribo.
Goranga Haribo.
Goranga Haribo.
Goranga Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo,
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo, Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo,
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo,
Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo,
Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo.
Goranga, Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo.
Goranga, Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo.
Goranga, Haribo,
Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo.
Hari.
There you go. Sankirtan. Wonderful stuff. Systematic training of the mind and the heart. Yeah, systematic. See, that's what we have to be understanding. Not just once in a while, whenever it feels systematic, to get the best result, of course.
Following a system and step by step and closer and closer
Yeah.
to real
Yeah.
progress, success.
Yeah. That's progress. And human life is meant to be progressive. Yeah. Okay, Ruben, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful view out your window. I know that view.
Yeah. Oh, you're wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to be back here.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful countryside and beautiful people.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, first and foremost, people. Yeah.
Yeah. We could start another whole lecture.
No,
but
it's
we
time to.
All right.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you very much, Haribo, to everybody there, and we'll see you next time.
I'll see you next week. Thank you, Valka. Thank you, Slava.
Namaste, Haribo.
Namaste. Systematic training of the mind, intelligence, and the heart. Happy that you've joined. Thank you for that. And do, subscribe to this podcast if you like this, and watch the other podcasts that we have, and, share it with your friends and family so that they can also benefit. And, you can follow us on Facebook. You can contribute to this project on patreon.com. All the links available in our link tree. So we'll see you next week again. Make sure to, what do you say? Stay true to yourself and dare to break trail. Ha det bra.